So since I have air tools available to me, I'm going to use them. It'll make it a lot faster for me, and I won't have as much problem hand sanding, because when you hand sand, your hands will conform more to the material itself. So I adapted up a little piece of, this is a grinder. It goes on an actual disc grinder. I adapted it up to one of my drills and just stuck a piece of sandpaper on top of it. This is 60 grit that's on here. This is what I started out with. So started out with 60. I've got a bucket of water down here too that's enough to dunk this whole thing into, so I can get all that extra filing stuff off of it. So I'm not just swirling around all the filings, and it's keeping it a little bit cooler. And when I'm doing it, I can take this and actually put it in the water, turn it on, and it gets all the gunk out of the sandpaper itself. So I'll work on this and get these ridges out. Go very, very slow, because you don't want to go too deep and make this too thin. I was using a block on this, but it's got a slight curve in it all throughout the whole thing, so the block was only touching on the corners and giving me like corner burn on all of it. So it was not good, but when I got to the smaller grits, I went ahead and used my fingers or my hands. So I used a machine to do 60 and 150 to get all of my divots out, and then I went, when it was flat, then I went and did it by hand. And I had some problem areas like this corner. These corners up here actually have some ribbing in them. They're not as deep as these ones, but it does have some ribbing in it, which I did use a small little sanding block in. I'll show you later, but that way I could get it as flat as I could and get those ridges out of it. So let's get to it, I guess. Get a little bit of water on it for some lubrication, and we'll start over on this side. Don't work one spot too much. You want to work it all nice and evenly. You can see those ridges in there now, how deep they are. They just started sanding them. They're in there pretty deep. There's actually this is the deepest line that comes around this way. It's right here. That's the deepest line that's in there. That one was hard to get out, but with the machine, with an air tool, it made it real easy to cut right through it. Once I start to see a good film of white plastic building up in all the little crevices, I like to stop, and before it dries, dunk it real quick, because if you don't, you can get a lot of that off just by dunking it. So I dunked this half and didn't dunk this half, and all that stuff will just cause more scratches and act like sandpaper and everything else. So that's why I have a bucket where I can dunk the whole thing into it, and sometimes you need to scrub on it with your hands. But that also means that the sandpaper is getting gummed up too. So you want to clean your sandpaper off too, because that will just it will have the plastic will actually not cut in, but it will keep spinning, and it will actually like cause it to be like plastic friction welding kind of. It will just get there and it'll start to smoke and get hot. So I learned that one the hard way on the first one. You want to make sure that it's clean, because you don't want to be pushing all that stuff around. And the moisture actually helps with a lot of that too. So what I do is I take this and I'll dunk it in here, turn it on real quick, and that gets that gets all of it off. The rest is just where the sandpaper's falling off on the outside. So get this wet again, and we'll keep going. So what I've been doing for sandpaper on these is your disc grinders. They'll have a stick-on actual disc, and you can take chunks out. And I have this new piece that I'll just stick right on here, cut it out, and then I'll have a new disc that's shaped just like this. So this one has the sticky side. So peel this backing off, stick it on here as best as we can. Make sure to get all of it covered. Get a new one if you need to. Stick it on there really good, go around the whole outside, make sure it's stuck on there. And then take some old junk scissors and you can cut around the outside of this right here. So we'll just start down here. Work our way around, making sure not to cut too far underneath the rubber because the edges are what you use the most. So if you're cutting where you're actually cutting underneath or at like an angle to the rubber, it will cause the rubber to come in contact with whatever you're sanding, and that rubber will leave black marks. It left black marks on the last one. Learned that one too the last time. So now that we got that on there, it's close enough to centered. It will, or perfectly round. It's got a couple little spots where it's not perfect, but that'll be okay for what we need to. So we'll just keep continuing on this. It's starting to show. It's not going to show up on camera. It might. So you can see the clear lines are what I have to get down to. I'm working there, getting it just a little bit. You can see these ribs now in it too. So we'll just keep working at it. Or try to show the difference. So this part over here, I've gotten just below where the ribs are. You can see it's getting flat. And then I've still got these ribs in here. That means I need to go deeper over here and not quite so deep on this side. You can see it's clear, and then the ribs are starting. So I'm just getting below or where these ribs are starting to disappear and go flat. And then I'll move down to my next one, because this 60 grit is my most aggressive that I'm going to use, which is really aggressive. But I'm going to want to do most of the work with this one, so it's easier down the road, and I only have to worry about getting the scratches out and not so much the divots out. So we'll keep going on this and get it all smoothed out so we can go to our next step. So this part right here is a good example of staying in one spot too long. I've actually used that plastic and burnt plastic into it, so I have to actually get that out. I've got most of everything done, this line that you're seeing right here is actually on the outside. So it's good to use your fingers, use your feel. You can feel all these little divots in here if there actually is some. So, but I gotta go back through and just hit it real quick and pull it back. What I do is I'll just come through and I'll pull down like this. Just pull it down, and then you'll see. You don't want to take much more off of that because I'm already at where I want to be, right there or close to it. So I don't want to take much more off than I have to. So, but I have to get those white clumps out, or it's gonna be really hard to get out down the line. So it's easier to do it with the most aggressive sandpaper because it'll come out a lot quicker and a lot easier. So there we go. They're already out. Now this looks clear enough as it is now, but when it dries, it'll be really, really hazy. So it's got all this dirt still in it, and I can pull some of it out with my fingers, but the water is acting like kind of a clear coat to help hide a lot of the scratches. So once it dries, it will actually turn really hazy. Like the other one's about like this, but that's almost final sand. It's officially the next day. I definitely didn't get as far as I wanted to with last night. It got a little bit too late and the air compressor was running, so I decided to quit. But I thought it'd be a good time to show you the difference between what going down to, I think this one, to 2000 grit versus 60 grit. This is 60. As you can see, it's really, really gross. There's a lot that you can get out by stepping down your sandpapers. So this is 60, and this has all the scratches out of it that I need. There's actually a little bit right here that's still in the print, but I'll get that out when I step down to the next grit, which is 150. So I'm going from 60 to 150. So I'm starting with the 150, and I thought it'd be a good idea to show you now because this will be the most drastic comparison between the two grits of what the difference is. So this is hit with 150, and since I went this way with the 60, I went this way with the 150, and you can tell that there's still scratches to get out right here, but the majority of, or this side's all going down like this. So I've got deep enough with the 150 on this part as I'm working my way across. I haven't done up here quite yet, but you can tell where you stop, like right here, there's still hash marks going this way, so I need to sand up in here a little bit better. So that's a good representation on why you need to, or why it's a good idea to switch directions, is so you can see what or how deep that last one is and how much you need to take out. There's a couple little scratches, like there's one, there's a couple that if you're going the same way, you're not going to notice or not going to be able to tell if you've gotten them out or not. It's as I said before, the deeper they are, the harder they are to get out, especially as you go up or lower in grit, higher grit count, whatever you want to say. It'll be harder to get deeper because you are not taking off as much. You're essentially making it smoother, like glass. So there's a good half comparison between the two grits. You can see the drastic change between the two as well. How much this has taken off and actually made it cleaner. Now, these will be the most drastic change, but this one, you can still see through it pretty good, but it takes a lot longer to get down to this. And then your last step will be to polish it out with actually polishing compound. I've got some headlight restoration kit stuff that I'll use on this. I think I also have some plastic rejuvenation stuff, so we'll see which one works better. But there's beginning a pretty good drastic change and end result that I'm kind of looking for before polishing. So I'm just finishing up doing the 150, and everything looks super clean right now because there's a bunch of water in it. So it's really good to check to see if you've gotten everything out between the steps by just cleaning everything off, drying it off, making sure that you can get all that water out, because the water will actually distort the vision of it and act like a filler, if you will. So we'll clean it off. Now you can see it's starting to haze, and we'll check it again. There was, actually, it looks pretty good. There's a little spot right here. You're probably not going to be able to see it, where there's hash marks going that way. There's a couple right up in here. Maybe if I, no, that doesn't help. There, you can see one of them right there. They're very, very fine. There's another one. Very, very fine, but you can see just what you need to do just by changing up. There's a really good picture. That was the wheel coming around and spreading out. So I've got a little bit more work to do. You can see just the change. You see just the change between what it is now as opposed to when it was wet. So clean it off, dry it up, and make sure that everything's good before you move on to the next one, because like I said, it'll be easier to do now than on the next step. Here we go. We got 400 done, and then we're moving on to the next one. You can see it's a little bit clearer from the last one. There we go. There's 600 starting to get done. So here's 1500 is up here. I'm having some troubles with a couple cracks on this outside, so I went ahead and tried to sand them out so I could actually see what was actually on the inside. So that's what this is right here. That's actually on the outside. So, but everything else up here, that's all 15. And it's time to move on to 2000. I forgot to mention though that I only use 60 grit on the air gun. The rest has all been by hand wet sanding, so it's time consuming, but it's gonna give you the best overall finish and the smoothest finish. So for polishing, I picked up a whole bunch of different methods. I've got 6-inch bench grinder that I can convert to a polishing wheel. It's got 3 different grits. Or I've got a drill or a 6-inch buffer to use. So I've got plenty of different options. These have different wheel widths on the drill, which I'll probably start off with. This one's probably gonna be my go-to, since there's such tight little corners to get into, because I have to get all the way up to the outside perimeter for them. But I'll probably use these big ones on the outside because it'll go a lot faster. So that's what my plan is so far for buffing, and then I'll use some plastic polish that comes with a headlight restoration kit and use that as the final polish. So this is 3K sanded. You can see pretty well through it. It's still got a lot of little scratches in it, but they'll come out with the polish. This is the finished product right here. You can still see all those little cracks in there. I couldn't get those cracks out. They're actually in the middle of that piece. So it is what it is, I guess. I'm not going to be able to get them out for the life of me. So I'll live with it, I guess. I'm putting some black tint over it, I think. So hopefully that will hide a lot of it. But it is very clear. You can see the difference between this is 3000 grit sandpaper, and this is completely polished. I still have the two outers to do, which shouldn't take that much time. There's a lot less that I'm gonna have to sand out. I only have to sand down to here and get it out. Now I'll smooth it out a little bit because it comes actually down to this bump. There's bumps on the side of this here. There they are. There's bumps on the side of it. They're gonna be kind of a problem They're going to be a divot on the inside, so I'll probably sand just to this bump right here. And then I only have a little bit to do because all this is all clear already. Thank you guys for watching. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Are you still liking it? Did you believe that could happen? I was kind of skeptical when I first started. I was wondering what I got into, but now that we're done with one of them at least, it's turning out pretty good. I'm actually really excited. So thank you guys again for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.